and you're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt. And tonight's guest is Miss Kristin Lee, and we're talking about the Belaire House. And I will let you introduce yourself, kind of give us a little bit of info on what exactly it is that you think is going on there. You lived it. Good Lord, what the heck? When did this start? When did you buy the house? When did you begin this paranormal horror story?
Thanks for having me on tonight, Roger. I appreciate your time and all of your energy, as well as your people that help you put this together. We were affected by 2 flash floods. I believe it was 2004, 2005. That's when our house was destroyed by one flash flood. It was Hurricane Ivan, and the waters came in through McMahon Creek and kind of just took off the side of the house. And we had tried to rebuild, and then a week later, Francis came in and just wiped everything away. So we were homeless for probably, I would say, a good 6-7 months. And FEMA had come in shortly after that, and they gave me $25,000 to rebuild my life. I was at work, and I was on the Belmont County foreclosed auditor website, or the Belmont County Auditor Foreclosed Homes website, just trying to find something that would be practical with $25,000 as a start, as a down payment for a home for me and my boys. And I found 1699 Belmont Street in Belaire, Ohio. And it was just breathtaking. It was an old colonial home, a great big yard that the kids and my dog Bella could run through, fenced-in yard, 4 bedrooms, a full attic, hardwood floors, jigsaw fireplaces in almost every room. It's just a lovely home, just breathtaking home. Shortly after, what happened was I called and I met the realtor that night, and I signed a promissory note on the living room fireplace. And the next day I went to work, with fingers crossed, hoping that, we wouldn't have to be displaced for very much longer. And she called me late that afternoon, and she said that the bank had accepted the bid on the loan, and they were going to start the procedure to get everything in order so we could have the home. And we moved in about 3 weeks later. It was July 4th weekend is when we moved in. There were some repairs that needed to be done, so we started working on the bathroom upstairs. Things would come up missing, but like tools, like hammers, screwdrivers, like the caulking for the bathtub, the tile. Some of that stuff would come up missing, but I was so tired from working and being in school, and just thought it was just me. I really did. But the most profound experience, the very first profound experience that I encountered, is I was asleep on the couch, and my son it was a big sectional couch, and he was on the other side. And Bella, our dog, was in between us, and I felt the cushion go down in front, like by my waist, and I opened my eyes, and there was this gray figure of a man, and he was sitting there looking at me, and I could see through him. He was very transparent, and I woke up and I said, "Who are you? What are you?" Just very alarmed, very scared. "Who are you? What are you?" And he got up and he walked into the foyer and he vanished. So I was up for the rest of the night. I was very alarmed. I was very shaken. I had not ever witnessed anything like that before. And I didn't tell anybody. Because I just didn't know if I was, if I was kind of losing my marbles. I didn't know if I'd been working too hard. I didn't know if it was a dream. I didn't know,
So let me hold you up there real quick. The realtor that you talked to didn't inform you of anything?
Correct. They did not inform me of anything. No,
it's pretty obvious that they probably knew.
Well, they're no longer in operation. They closed their real estate agency down shortly after we moved in.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah. So, and I have not had any kind of communication with them at all. None. That was the first thing that had happened. The house had sat empty for 4 years. People had always been in and out. And I didn't know much about the house. I didn't research the house. I didn't know that you were supposed to, it was just like, yay, I'm buying a home. We're going to have a place to cook. We're going to have a place to put a bed. We're going to have a place to play, Candyland and watch TV, a home,
Right.
I didn't think that it would turn into what it has turned into. So that was the first profound experience that happened there.
Okay, now I'm going to kind of go into a little bit of the history because I think it is really unique. I don't know of a better word to use. When the house was built, the guy took his donkey into every room and had him approve it.
Yes, that was his house. Do you remember the old rhyme, "This is the house that Jack built"?
That's what I was going for there. The house that Jack built.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that built the house took the donkey through and had him to approve every room as it was built.
Correct. Yes. Yes, that was of his home, that house that the donkey named Jack built. Now, this man, Jacob Hetherington, he built the house that I'm speaking of, the Belaire House, for his daughter, Eliza.
So it was next door, though, wasn't it?
It was across it was, you could say it was next door, but it was across the field because he owned, I think it was 52, 54 acres. So
right. He was like a big coal miner operation
yes.
or something.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Now, wouldn't it be plausible to say that, because if I'm not mistaken from what I read, there's actually coal mines that ran underneath the house.
Yes, there is still coal mine. The number one, it's called Portal 1. It runs from the end of Belmont Street, which is considered Pinch Run, all the way to St. John's Catholic Church. It runs under there, and then it stops.
And I'm sure that there was probably cave-ins and deaths around that area also from people that worked for him in the mines or whatever.
Correct, yes.
And then also, wasn't there something about some Indian burial ground?
Correct, yes. Behind the house, I own about a half an acre up on the hill. And when I left the home and had not been back to the home, I learned when I came back to Ohio, I learned that there was a native burial and also native caves that were on that land.
So there was a big smelting pot, so to speak, of all different kinds of entities that could be there. Correct,
yes. And the Ohio River is right in front of the house, too. And that's, from what I understand through research and
the water, the river, the current, the water helps influence that. Mm-hmm. Also, limestone, quartz. I'm trying to think of that one rock, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's very hard rock. What I can't think of it. If I didn't want to think of it, I'd have done said it 3 times. But anyway, all that stuff, adds to, from what I've researched, all that stuff adds to, the activity that goes on.
Right. Yes. It's just kind of what I have been told it is a ley line. That's the way that it was said to me, but I understand that some people call it a ley line, and I don't know.
Yes, that also can affect things. If you have a crossing there,
mm-hmm.
of the ley lines, that puts out a lot of energy. So, there's a whole lot of stuff going on there that can cause manifestations.
And 8 miles down the road is the Moundsville Penitentiary, the big haunted prison where the mounds are. So that's in that neck of the woods too. And when we had the first team, OVPRI, Amanda and Mike McAllister out of Portsmouth, Ohio, when they were the first on the case, they also had learned through research that this land prior to all of this was like the French and Indian War. That was the land.
Wow. So there's just a lot of stuff going on that can cause, anything. But what I don't understand, and we spoke a little bit about this before the show, the demonic presence. And with all these different types of activity, could it be possible that it came from any of this? Possibly. I don't know how exactly Native Americans believed as far as demonic presences. I know they believed in the Manitou, which is I guess an evil spirit. And I'm not saying all Native Americans. There's certain groups of them that believe in the Manitou, which is basically an evil spirit.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for that piece of information. That's very profound to me because back in the day when I had my website for the psychic medium work that I do, my website developer's last name was Manitou.
Well, now I'm thinking I pronounced that right. I'm pretty sure I may be off on it because how they pronounce a certain word, in English may be a little different.
Sure, yeah. I know that the native tribes had named Belaire, and it was a different pronunciation and a different spelling, but throughout the course of time, it just developed into Belaire and Bellareaire. So it has changed over the course of time. I guess as anything does, any names.
Right. See if I can get a picture of the house up for everybody. And I have it here somewhere. Okay, anyway, go ahead where you were before I rudely interrupted you there, but I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to get that out there. But
Sure, absolutely, no worries. I would say probably 3 years of being in the home, we just, maybe two and a half at the most, it just became unbearable to live in, and unfortunately we got lucky and there was a big hailstorm that had happened that ruined a lot of roofs here in the Ohio Valley, and there were so many blue tarp project companies coming in. That's when Katrina, the aftermath of Katrina, I believe, I think that's the right time frame.
Now this is a nice looking house.
Oh, it's lovely. Picture. It's beautiful, Roger. It's just lovely.
I'm a little bit confused about the two different colored shingles on the roof, but I mean, I love those type of houses anyway.
Right. The roof had been repaired due to the hailstorm. Right. And that's how the blue tarp people came in, this construction crew that was roofers. And they approached us one night. We decided we were just going to walk away from the house and we were just going to try to start a life, because at that point in time, the activity wasn't so awful bad. It wasn't horribly bad, but it was enough to say, hey, let's go. We need to go before this progresses into something that could be detrimental. So I put the house on Craigslist, and this contractor came and he offered me $1,500 a month to stay in the house, and I'd never seen that much money from a rental in my life. So I said, sure, yes, let's do this. And we left. I mean, he gave us a week to pack up and leave, and we were gone. And they didn't stay. They sublet the house. After the sublease was over and the income was gone, I filed bankruptcy on the home, and we left. We left the Ohio Valley, and I started working in Salem, Massachusetts as a psychic reader. And a couple days being in Salem and being settled, the code enforcer, Jim Chase from Belaire, had been calling me and leaving me voice messages that he was going to start fining me for the upkeep of the lawn, because it's a code that you have to keep your grounds maintained in Belaire. And I, about the fifth or sixth phone call of ignoring him, thinking, well, this guy must not have got the message that I don't own the home anymore. The last message he sent me was, look, I've just fined you $800. You get your ass back to Belaire and cut your grass. So I didn't take that very nicely. And I called him and I said, Mr. Chase, I think you have your information incorrect. He said, no, Ms. Lee, you have your information incorrect. You own this home. I said, I do not. I filed bankruptcy on it. He said, well, you better call your attorney, Elliot Garvey. I said, well, how the hell do you know my attorney's name? He said, I think you just better call him, and I think you better get home as soon as possible. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I don't own this home anymore. I filed bankruptcy. I paid the attorney to get this out of my hair. This is done. I don't have this. So I left work early and I called Columbus, Ohio, and I said, Elliot, what is going on? This man in Belaire is telling me that I own my home. And he said, yes, you do. He said the bank didn't want it. The auditor didn't want it. Belmont County didn't want it. And they squashed the debt and it's yours again. And I said, but I don't want the home. He said, well, you know, you're going to have to abide by what they want you to do. So I had to get back on the plane. I had to go to Logan Airport, drive into Belaire, and land in Pittsburgh, get picked up, drive into Belaire, and meet this Jim Chase, and went to the
William in the chat room said, give it to me.
Gosh, if he would have just been there, if he would have just been there 7 years ago or 5-6 years ago, gosh. So we get there, and I meet this Jim Chase in his office, and I said, I'm not going in that house by myself. I'm not going. If you want me to go, you're going to go with me, and you're going to walk through the house with me. So him and his secretary went in, and we walked through the house. It was destroyed. Everything was just ripped apart. They took the copper wiring. They tried to take away the fireplaces. It was a mess. And he said, well, I'm going to introduce you to my friend. His name is Jim Johnston. He might be interested in taking the house off your hands. Well, before the bankruptcy, I wrote the book called 1699 Belmont Street, A Portal to Hell. And my intention was to, copy 15, 20 books and just plaster it throughout the entire house, because I knew that somebody was going to buy the house. In my mind, I honest to God thought that once this is out of my hair, there's going to be people that are going to come in, but they need a heads up. Well, Jim Johnston had a copy of this book. I don't know how he got a copy of this book. He still to this day will not tell me how he got a copy of the book. And the investigators had already set up an episode with my ghost story. My ghost stories out of the Bio channel or A&E channel, something like that. And Jim pulled me aside and I said, look, Jim, just take the house. He said, I can't just take your house. I said, you can just give me a $1 bill and that is fine. You can give me a quarter. Just take the house. I don't want to do with it. I don't want to do with this. I don't want to be here. My life is no longer here. I just don't want to do this. And he said, you're being very stupid. And I said, what do you mean I'm being very stupid? He said, you have a book. You and this team are going to be on TV. Belaire needs some sort of a tourism attraction. He said, I'm going to invest in this house. You have your team come. I said, wait a second. I don't even have a team. I'd never had a team. I'm not a paranormal person. I don't do anything like that. So I just want a quiet little life where I can bake cupcakes and raise my kids. Walk the dog, be normal, go to PTA meetings. It's just like, right. That's what I want. And he insisted that Belaire it needed some sort of something to make it prosperous. And he invested a lot of money in the tours of this home, and the team came in and they started running tours. And I told him, I said, Jim, somebody is going to get hurt. Somebody is really going to get hurt if you continue to do this. So then we started implementing this waiver of liability, where people couldn't sue him, because at this point I signed the house in his name. So it was but he made me keep half of it. So he was like, no, it's half and half. So I was still stuck half, but it wasn't a full 100%. So I felt comfortable with I'm almost getting out of this, it's like this is almost going to happen. And then it just, disaster happened. Disaster completely happened. He hired the wrong people to run the tours. He did a lot of, it wasn't him. He just didn't know, but he made a lot of really bad business decisions. And, I closed the doors and I told him, I said, we're not doing this. Somebody's going to get hurt. There's a lot of negative energy. There's a lot of drama, and I don't want to be a part of this. So we closed the doors, and I went quiet for 2.5 years, and it was the most peaceful, loving 2 years of my life. I met my husband. We got married. We had a great time. It was just it was bliss. It was like finally some sort of a kind of a normal, away from that house. But renters would come, renters would go. They would never stay. This last batch of renters, they were the best renters that I think we've ever had in the house, but they called one day and they said, we're leaving. And my husband came to me and he said, Chuck Norris is what we called him, because he was really a tough guy. Anybody that could stay in that house for as long as he did, they deserve the title to be called Chuck Norris. But he said, Chuck's leaving. And I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do? That's like our foundation. That's like most of our income. And he said, well, he's paid until October. I said, okay, so we have a couple weeks. Chuck Norris called a few days later and he's like, look, it's Sunday. Come down, meet me. I've got the keys on the counter. We're packed up. We're ready to go. And I'm like, wait a second, Chuck, you paid. He's like, I don't care. I'm leaving. So he left and I haven't heard a peep out of him since. He said that when he was walking through the kitchen into the living room, the chandelier fell down and it almost hit him. They came in with a family. They left with 2 people. I don't know what happened. I don't know. And if I did, I probably wouldn't disclose his personal story. I won't do that to him. But before he did leave, he told me that he was in the basement and he found a secret room. And he did some research on it and he was able to find a correlation to that house being part of the Underground Railroad. So it is actually older than what we had originally thought that it was, if indeed that information and that research that he did is true. We haven't even begun to start to collect that kind of a data process from that secret room. You can see it. It is there. There's bricks out of it. He removed some of the bricks, and I feel like when he removed some of those bricks, things just became a lot more intense for him, to where I feel like he was pushed out,
Right.
So, when Daniel came to me and said Chuck was leaving, I panicked. Roger, I just panicked. What are we going to do? I can't be homeless again. We've been homeless a couple of times because of that house, and I just didn't ever want to see that again. And I knew it was a paranormal place. So I contacted a few people that I'd stayed into communication with just to see if they wanted to come and see what kind of an activity was in there since Chuck was gone. Because we had not been in there for 2 years. We just, we didn't know what the activity was. It could have, when we left, Joe Estate had come, Gina Palmer had come, and they cleansed the house, and that seemed to work for a while. It calmed it down. It was manageable. But after that, it progressively, they're gone, so it got worse, and now it's really bad. We had an event there with Bishop James Long and Kat Lang. They came in October 9th and 10th of this past weekend, I think, or weekend before last. And Bishop came I opened the doors to him because he has a homeless ministry, and I'm very big on supporting the homeless. And he had a goal because he takes money throughout the winter to feed homeless families and to give them blankets and food and money and, all of these wonderful things that he does for the homeless community in Louisville, Kentucky. And being homeless and remembering sleeping in my Jeep, I just wanted to open that up for him. So he came in and he raised money, but he also investigated. And we opened it up to the public. And we charged people $45 to come in for the lecture, for the lockdown. It was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And it was we were in the back bedroom, and he was running an Ovilus, and he had told me that Oviluses do not say names. They do not speak in sentences. And this one had spoken sentences. It said, "One blessed be red dog." Bella, my dog at the time, back in the day, she's now crossed. She's no longer with us. She had her puppies in that back room. And about 5 years prior to that, Kentucky Ghost Scouts, with Danny Huang and Donald, and Mike and Amanda McAllister and Cody Russell with OVPRI, all of these were out of Kentucky. They were running an Ovilus, and they have it on video where this Ovilus was counting down, and it just kept saying 1, blessed be red dog, 2, blessed be red dog, 3, blessed be red dog, all the way up to 7. And when Bishop when that Ovilus said that again, he Bishop's very knowledgeable, first of all, and he he was explaining to me, but in my mind, I was like, oh my God, that just said what just said 5 years ago. And he was saying, he was like, Kristin Lee, normally, in his very educated way, an ovulus does not know, like, but Bishop. He's like, but an ovulus does not speak in sentences. I'm like, but Bishop, and I'm like, but Bishop, wait a second. And then he's going on about all these really big, awesome words and all this awesome exorcism knowledge and stuff. And I'm like, but Bishop, that was said, the exact same thing was said verbatim 5 years ago, and he has it on recording. And then he's like, oh. It's like, yeah, that, I don't know what to say about that, Bishop. I have it on video, and then I'm like looking through all of, 5-6 years ago of Yahoo messages and trying to find this video, and I still cannot find it. But I don't know what that means. But that is extremely profound that this ovulus would say that exact same thing as it said 5 years ago. And after it had said that, it said demon, demon, demon. It said it 3 times. And Bishop had said it doesn't say things repetitiously, and it said it 3 times. And I don't know if an ovulus is programmed to say demon. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just a homeowner. I'm not a paranormal expert. I'm not an exorcist. I'm not a paranormal investigator. So that was very profound. That still has left me a little bit shaken inside, that it would say something like that verbatim. That just doesn't make any sense, Well,
what would you think, or let me correct myself here. Why would you think a demonic presence would show up there? I mean, was there something in the history in the past that you think would cause something like that, or
possibly? Possibly. I don't know, and I'll never know. I mean, I can speculate all day long. When I had a friend that was a bodyguard for a metal band in Clearwater, Florida, and he had come and stayed at the house. When he came and stayed at the house, things progressively got worse. I mean, extremely bad. I was pushed down the steps. Bella was thrown up against the wall. He would find, somehow he would be able to say, okay, guys, I know you hid my shirt. Please give it to me. And his shirt would just appear out of, like, in the kitchen on the floor. It was very odd, and it sounds crazy, and it doesn't seem like it's true, but it did happen. Like, these things would just happen. And he didn't work. He was like my Tony Danza, He's like the boss, or what do you call that? Who's the boss? He
right.
Stayed home. He took care of my son while I worked. He cleaned the house. He cooked, he was just the Tony Danza is what we called him. But he did spend a lot of time in the house. He said that when he first got there, that it was a very welcoming feeling, like coming home. But during the end, like the very end of all of this, the last time that we left the house, he and I, we moved to a townhouse together because we had developed a relationship. We actually became engaged. And things did not work out between us. And I lived in townhouse 68, and he moved into townhouse 68B. So he moved under me, and he just became very odd, very, very, very odd. Like, it wasn't that nice, loving, happy person anymore. It just became very, very dark, very, very sad. Just a lot of drinking, a lot of, just out of the ordinary, just behaviors with him. He was working, as a transporter. He transported, people with developmental disabilities, and he would get in that van and he would drive them drunk. And this is a man that would watch my child and just, be that Superman, that superhero that just was loving and caring, and animals would come to him and kids would come to him, and just he had such a great vibration. He just had such a great presence to him. But in the end, it was so ugly. He was so nasty. He was just the ugliest thing that I had ever seen in my life. And he had invited me down to his apartment, one night, and we went down, and it became violent. It became very physically violent, and he choked me. He had me up against the wall. And I tried to leave the apartment, and when I tried to leave, he had me pinned up against the door, between the wall and the door, and he was choking me, and I started praying, pleading the blood of Jesus Christ and praying to Saint Michael, and I caught my breath, and I said to him, "You're a demon," and he stopped, and he walked backwards, and he circled, like did a complete circle, and he stood there with his 6'4", like 250-pound man, just stood there with his hands to his side and just shook his head, and he said, "What did you say to me?" I said, "You're a demon, John. You're a demon." I said, "By the blood of Jesus Christ, I cast you out." And he walked away, and I have never seen him. I've never spoke to him. I've never seen him since. And that was 5 years of living with someone, having that person as your best friend. I think that he was possessed. I do. I think that there was some certain level of possession that happened to him. I don't know if he was the trigger. I don't know. And I don't want to think that he is, but that's the only correlation in my mind with what I've seen with my own eyes that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Let me hold you up here a minute. We're live on WCJB Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. Sorry it's a little bit late. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guest is Miss Kristin Lee. And we are talking about the Belaire House and events that took place there. William in the chat said the change in personality on the part of Tony is not unusual when you have the input of an entity for so long, then have it taken away. It's kind of like, he says, kind of like withdrawal.
Okay. So like when we lived in the house, it was okay, but when we left, it was taken away. Is that what he means?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. You know, going back to the history too with Edwin was, he was part of the Hetherington family. When his sister died, he became so stricken because his sister was gone. He actually had mediums come to try to connect him to his sister, the afterlife in that house. And then a local man had told me that he had just become so fascinated, completely fascinated with the afterlife, that he started studying mediumship as well. So I don't know if he had opened something up. I don't know. And maybe, maybe it was reopened. Did he ever close it? I don't know. I just don't know.
Well, when people delve into things that they don't understand, be very easy to, I guess, open a portal, let something in. And number one, they either don't realize that they did that, or number two, they don't know how to close it.
Right. Right. Now, when Joe Estates came to the house, because I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. My time is a little bit off, because I just, when we left the house, I just don't think about it. I just move on, it's just kind of like a numb it. It didn't happen. It didn't exist. So a lot of that is really buried, and a lot of it is forgotten. But we had to go back to the house again, and that's when Joe Estates had come, and he had said to me, there are things open in that house. And we had met at a metaphysical show here in St. Clairsville, Ohio. He's the owner of Pagan Presence, and he closes portals. And he had come to the house, and he said that I had pictures hung on where the portals were, and I had carpets laying over where the portals were. And I didn't know anything about portals, Roger. I had no idea. I just didn't know. And he closed them, and the activity had decreased. The only presence that I saw in the house after he did that was the little child spirit. And she came through on a ghost box session that was on the episode of My Ghost Stories. She stated that her name was Emily Davis, and we had found that she had drowned in that house, or not in the house, but close to the house. And she used to play in the house. So I was, it was harvest full moon. I was on the roof, playing guitar, just kind of pulling in that lunar energy and just watching it glisten on the Ohio River. Just trying to really chill out. No one was home. And I saw the little girl walk into the study area and go back up into the attic. It wasn't harmful. It wasn't malicious. Nothing was malicious anymore. It was very peaceful. So at that point in time, I felt this is okay. We could probably rent this place out again and I can get out of here again. And that's what we did. And, you know, in the beginning, the renters didn't have any issues. I checked in with them. You guys doing okay? Yeah, we're doing fine. Yep, everything's great. Okay, great. And thought it was over. Joe closed the portals. Hallelujah. It's all done and over with. That's all we needed to do. But no, I learned since then that portals only stay closed for so long. And if someone comes in and they trigger things, if they have drug addictions, if they have domestic violence, if they play with a pendulum or a Ouija board, or they do something that isn't holy, then these portals open back up and a disaster occurs. And I feel like that's what has officially happened in the house. Again. So.
Granite foundation, the river
Granite.
nearby, the graveyard, etc. See, that's what I was saying. Granite, that's what I was trying to think of earlier.
Okay.
All this stuff helps to intensify paranormal activity from everything that I've learned. And, I don't claim to be an expert. I don't know of anybody that actually is. We learn what we learn, and of course, hands-on is always the best way to learn. Hopefully, I won't ever have to have a hands-on demonic issue to deal with, but if
Right.
I do, number one, I'd be removing myself from the location and get somebody in there that knows how to deal with that.
And I've removed myself from this location a handful of times, and it just keeps coming back. I cannot be done. I just want, honest to God, I just want to be done. I just want, I just want to be done, Roger. Now I'm kind of waist deep into it because now people want to investigate this place. And now that there's a website intact and people are investigating it and they're booking investigations out until February, that's great. That's fine. That's all great, but I'm not going there. We have staff now. There's a lady that is unlocking the door. She lets them in. That's all she's doing. They go in, they do what they do, and they leave. I will not go. I'm happy on top of this mountain. I'm happy on top of this hill, and this is where I'm going to stay. So, people that do come in, I'm not going to be there. I'm just not. I'm not going back.
Well, if anybody in that situation that had been there, did research, whatever, now they can get a hold of you though, right? Even though you're not present at the location.
Right. I'm a phone call away. I'm an email away. I'm a Facebook message away. I'm just not, like today, my friend had to go and cut the grass, and I tell them, I said, I tell everybody, when you're coming to investigate that home, you have to really have your game on because that house is very unpredictable. It will play on a very emotional level of you. It will, Friday night, here's a perfect example. When Bishop was there, I felt comfortable going in with Bishop and Kat Lang. I felt very comfortable going in with them because they've dealt with this stuff for 14 years. I mean, they have the paranormal clergy. That's what they do. So I wasn't scared, but Kat took a group upstairs, to investigate. And I stayed downstairs with another group. The chickens is what we called each other, cause we didn't want to go up there. There was a little girl that was there. I tell everybody, do not drink. Do not come to the house intoxicated. Don't even drink a glass of wine. Have no alcohol. Do not use drugs. Don't even smoke pot. Do not. And we tell them, do not eat meat. Cleanse. You have to cleanse yourself before you come into the house. And, for the love of God, do not, if there's a lady or a woman who's on her menstrual cycle, she will be a target. she will definitely be a target. Because the house looks at that as someone that's weak, and they will get the weakest link and they will start attacking them. And there was a little girl that was there, little, because I'm not little, I'm not young, so I call her a little girl. She's probably in her mid-20s, but she came in, she was bleeding, she had a few drinks, and she had had some meat, and she just became numb, like her whole body was completely freezing. And prior to splitting up into tours, Kat Lang had told everyone what to do in case of, if something happened, if somebody felt weird, if they felt like that funhouse effect where you're like wobbling back and forth, or if you felt cold, or if you felt a massive headache, or if you felt like you were going to vomit, you were to get up, do not turn around, walk out of the house backwards, and just keep walking. Kat trained us how to do that. And one of the volunteers that was helping run that tour that night literally got this little girl up out of her chair. Her boyfriend was scared to death. He just kind of sat there shaking. And I looked at him and said, "That's your girlfriend. You better go with her." And they got up and they walked out. And about 25, 30 minutes later, she was okay. But that's what this house can do. It can definitely prey on people like that. The Ovulus, when the whole entire group was with Bishop up in the master bedroom, it was calling out names. It was calling out some of the group members' deceased loved ones. My son, Sam, he's not my biological son, but I am Strega. I'm an Italian witch. We have a coven, and we have a lot of ordained ministers here in our coven. He was on his way, I was leaving. He was going to take my place. And the Ovulus kept saying, "Sam, Samuel, 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 Sam." And it just kept saying this other little girl's deceased loved one. His name was Charles. And it was very odd because prior to that, we dropped my son off at his grandmother's, and I told my husband, I said, can you grab Lane's, his pill, his vitamin? And I forgot it. And Daniel thought I said pillow. So Daniel comes to the house and he's like, "Oh, I brought Lane's pillow." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I meant the Fred Flintstone vitamin thing, the pill." And he said, "Oh." He said, "Well, I'll go back up and get it." So Daniel's gone. I'm up in the room with Bishop Long and the whole crowd. And the Ovulus said, "Daniel, drummer, air, Aquarius, pillow, Lane." And it's just like, are you kidding me? You're really going to, that's what it was saying. So whatever that is, it's just extremely, it hurt us. It hurt us in the driveway talking about a vitamin pill and a pillow and saying Daniel's a really great drummer and just correlating him and saying his name. I don't know what the heck that is, Roger. I don't know.
Now I got to ask you, out of all these people that rented the house, they knew going in, right? You told them it was haunted, right?
Absolutely, yes. Oh gosh, it's been all over TV.
My question is, did any of those that you know of possibly use a Ouija board in there or something?
The one set of renters, when Jim rented, the investor from the paranormal tours, he'd rented the house out to this one set of guys. There's a bookshelf that was in the living room, and they had all these different religious sanctuary artifacts. Like the bottom would be hoodoo, the next one would be voodoo, then there would be some sort of a Wiccan thing, then there would be a Catholic thing. It was just like a big shrine of different diversities of religion. The boy wore a pentacle. I don't want to, I want to be very careful with what I say here, because I'm not saying that any certain religion can trigger this, and I don't know, because I wasn't there, what he had done. I just don't know. But from what I'd seen, I know that there was some sort of something going on that was metaphysical. I don't want to say it was dark or occult, or I don't know. I just don't know. But maybe, possibly, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that would make sense. You have the one person that stayed there for 2 years. But
about a year and a half.
But you have these people who only stayed there like, maybe a month or so, or a little longer.
About 6 to 9 months tops. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
maybe they were gooping around with stuff because they knew that the place was supposedly haunted and they
Right.
wanted to see if they could bring something up,
Yep. You're probably right.
and stir stuff up,
Yes.
and then the next person coming in, things are already stirred up. Uh, if they had some little something go on and they were the least bit interested in paranormal, they might take that as a thing like, well, hey man, let's get a Ouija board or, something and let's see who's here and
And just inviting it in.
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's, when Bishop came down, that's why we were going to do this right. We were actually going to do a Catholic rite and flatline it all. That is ultimately what I wanted. I wanted that to happen because I wanted to be able to list the home. But, even if listing the home after, a bishop from an old Catholic church, the old Catholic church, the paranormal clergy, who's very well known to make these things go away, has many, many success rates on making these things go away. Let's say he does this, okay? Let's say that the house is sold, or let's say it's rented again. They're just pushing so many things out in the market with, there's a purple or there's a pink Ouija board now for little girls. There's a blue one for little boys. Let's say a child goes into that home and they're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old and they start messing with that. Yeah, Bishop he could have done that right all day long. He could have flatlined it. But you know what? The second that someone comes in there and the second that they open that back up, it's going to come back 3 times harder and it's probably going to kill someone. So we did not do the right. We just, it's in place. It's safe. It's controlled as much as we can control it.
Well, if you have a demonic presence in that house, it is not safe and it is not controlled.
That part of it is, but controlled in the sense of nobody else, no other family is going to come in there without any kind of resources to help them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a mundane family, like the family across the street that just moved here from Louisiana that is, just somebody that is perfectly normal. That's the best way to say it because I don't feel normal.
All I'm saying is, if you have a demonic presence, you do not control a demonic presence.
Just but I didn't mean it like that. Maybe I should rephrase that. Yes, you're right. Nobody can control a demonic presence, but we can control what goes in the house. Who would trigger?
That, I will agree with.
Right. That's what I meant. Yes.
I'm just saying, when you said that, it's like, no.
Yes.
You can't do that. No.
I'm so sorry. Right. Just controlling what goes in the house. Who would open it up? That's sort of that's exactly what I meant, not the other way.
And if you have, and you say that you don't go there, you have paranormal teams that come and somebody lets them in and they do their thing and they leave. Okay. Do you have a stipulation?
Like if something would happen?
Ouija board in there.
Yeah, they are not. No Ouija boards. No. None. No.
And some paranormal teams use them.
I don't
want anything to do with it. But,
I don't want anything to do with that.
And their thing is, and how do I put this in a nice way? Their thing is, well, I just want to get some activity recorded so that I can show somebody, I got paranormal activity. They don't care how they do it.
Well,
and what they do could cause harm to the next person that goes in there and they wouldn't even know.
Right.
What's coming,
Yeah, it's definitely it weighs on my conscience. It really does. I'm not going to deny that. I'm financially.
Okay. William in the chat room is bringing up demonic would require a belief system that ascribed to Judeo-Christian beliefs. The presence of Native American burial grounds would not, in all good common sense, be a Christian entity. Okay, I agree with you, William, but nobody said that the entity in the house is a Native American entity. And, you're right. You would have to believe in demonic, I guess, but the biggest part of people do believe in demonic. And I'm sure that I don't know, like I said before when we were talking before the show, I don't know what Native American terms are for their evil spirits, Manitou, whatever. Uh, is that their term for their demonic entity? I don't know. I need to read up a little bit more on that. But I think that every religion has a sort of demonic entity. They ain't going to say, yeah, it's a demon, but it is their terminology of what a demon would be. Now, if I'm wrong, in the chat room, please correct me or whatever, but that's what I think. I mean, I could be way off, but I would think that, everybody has their terminology of what a demonic entity would be, whether they want to call it a demon or they call it a Manitou or they call it something else. It's still basically the same thing.
Right. I mean, I've heard demons be called inhuman spirits because they were never human,
And Cat Hobson in the chat also brought up there are bad entities in the Native American culture too, and that's what I was saying. If the entity is Native American, it won't respond to Christian removal practices. You would have to do a shamanic type removal.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
Thank Kat. She's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Kat. Another awesome cat.
Oh, Kat's awesome. But anyway, it all makes sense. Like I said, it would be Native Americans have their form of demonic entity. I'm sure the Christian religion believes that, they're demons. Native Americans have their term. Any other religion probably has their term for the same meaning. However you name it, it's still evil.
Right.
And it's still out to cause harm and destroy and whatever. So, whatever is there, whether it's Native American, whether it's the Christian form demonic, whatever it is, it's obviously not a good thing. And if people are carrying in Ouija boards or pendulums or whatever, or if they're doing seances or they're doing any of this stuff, they're opening this up to let whatever it is have free run. Now, that's the way I look at it. It's kind of like giving a kid a driver's license and saying, there's a car, take off.
Right.
And they may not ever drove a car, so you don't know where they're going to end up, but it's obviously not going to be good.
We do have a requirement that people have to be, they can't be novice. They have to be seasoned researchers, They have to have had some sort of training, formal training in order to enter.
Right. And a couple of good things brought up here in chat. William Wallace said, graveyard and cave. Have you explored the cave perhaps to find more about the natives that live there? Perhaps a relic that could shed light on the tribe that at one time lived there. And Kat says, or a relic in the house somewhere removed from the cave.
Possibly. We, when we learned about the native burial in the native caves, a couple of us did a hike on the hill to see what we could find. The caves were overgrown. There was a lot of dirt that was compacted inside to where you could not enter. But actually finding the burial, it's overgrown. I mean, it's really overgrown. So that was not successful.
Then I have to ask, how do you know there was a cave there if it was filled in?
Back in the day, Jim Johnston had grown up. He grew up on Winding Hill Road, which is right above the house, and everybody, all the locals know, and it's just word of mouth from him and the other locals that had stated to all of us that was a native cave, native burial on that land.
Okay, so I have to ask these things because if it's filled in, how would you even know it was a cave? Might have just been a sunken in place in the ground.
Correct.
You know, reasoning would be to get the right type of religious expert to cleanse the home. I agree, William, but we don't know for sure which type of entity it is, whether it be Native American, Christian, whatever, you know. If you knew which type you were dealing with, you would know which route to go. But now I also have to bring this up. We're fixing to have to go to a hard break here in a minute.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll talk about this. A lot of places that do paranormal lockdowns, for whatever purpose, you know, you mentioned training purposes or what have you, they do pay to do this, right?
Correct. Yes.
And it's been my, what I've learned so far about all these kind of places like this, you don't want the entities removed because that's your bread and butter. So when we come back from the break, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break, you guys, 4 or 5 minutes, refill your coffee cup, wine glass, whatever you're drinking, potty break, etc. And you are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guest is Miss Kristin Lee, and we shall return.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm Roger Belt, of course, your host, and I have Miss Kristin Lee here with me, and I brought up a subject before we went to break. And everywhere that, how do I put this, is famous, like your sanitariums, all this kind of stuff, you know, that have closed down and people buy them up and they give haunted tours and investigations, and of course you pay through the nose for it. Now, I'm not saying you do that, but my point being is if you have a location like that and you open it up for paranormal investigation or whatever, and you charge people to come in and investigate, the last thing you would want them to do is remove whatever's haunting the place, because then there would be no more bread and butter. You see where I'm going with that?
Yes.
Now, like I said, as far as I know, and trust me, I've interviewed people that pretty much will tell you, do not try to cross over any spirits. You know, big no-no. There was even one that said they have as much right to be here as you do. Well, yes, they do. But if they can be happier somewhere else, wouldn't that be the right thing to do?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, why would you want to keep a spirit somewhere just so you can make money if you knew they would be happy if they were crossed over wherever they need to go?
That was the goal, and we had crossed them over. Joe Estates, when he came in, him and Gina Palmer, he crossed over a lot of spirits that night, a lot of them. He was in the secret passage of the attic. He was on his hands and knees crying. We literally had to peel him up off the floor and get carbohydrates in him, feed him. He was dehydrated. He had worked his butt off crossing a lot of spirits over that night, and it was, you know, I say the word awesome, but I mean it profound, like biblical, as you would read in the Bible, that kind of awesome. Just the peace, the white light, there's no words to describe that. We have crossed spirits over in that house, but those were the earthbound spirits. whatever is in here, whatever's in that house now, I don't know if it can be crossed over. I don't know if it wants to be crossed over. I don't know.
Okay,
but yes.
That's my point. It would not be right, in my opinion, um, if I went to a place, and I would probably get thrown out, because if I had the ability to cross spirits over and I came across one that wanted to be crossed over, whether the owner wanted it done or not, I would feel obligated to do that.
Do it. Please. Yeah.
Like I said, I'd probably be kicked out. You get out of here.
No, if there is a spirit that makes some sort of a communication with someone, if they're collecting data or research or investigating in that home, and they, honest to God, feel with their heart and soul that the spirit wants to wants to leave, please release, surrender,
Okay.
Release.
And see, that speaks volumes about you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people don't want that. That's their bread and butter. They look at it like, as long as I can make money off of them, I want them to stay here.
No, I don't enslave spirits. That's the wrong thing to do. That is not ethical. I'm a big metaphysician. I work in the spirit world, not because of this house. I've done this my whole entire life. I do connect to loved ones, deceased loved ones, and I do deliver messages to family members. That's what I do full time. So if anybody that is ever planning on coming to this home, and there is some spirit, earthbound spirit, that does not want to be there, that does not want to be under the rule, the negative thumb of whatever that dominant spirit is in that house.
Then you would give them permission to
Absolutely.
cross that spirit. Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. That says a lot about you.
Regardless of, the finances, it's a big house. I got to pay the electricity. I've got to pay the water. I've got to pay taxes. That's what the fees are for the house. It's minimal. You walk into any big place. I don't know the names because I'm not, I can tell you how to make spadina. I can tell you how to make a killer pasta, but I cannot tell you what's up the road that's paranormal, that's charging $15,000, $18,000 a night just to go investigate it. It's like, I can tell you how to, so.
Well, and these people, and I'm not saying that some of them don't, but I'm sure a lot of them are doing it because they're making a killing.
I bet you they are. I know.
There's some of them that probably honestly are using what they make to restore the place, to make it, somewhat back to its former glory or what have you, But there's a lot of them, I'm sure, that are doing it because they get to live like the Rockefellers, you know what I'm saying?
I can't even imagine that. We were just talking yesterday, like, oh God, when are they going to turn the electricity off? It's like,
right.
What's in the budget? What did we make from that tour with Bishop? Well, we made $197. That's what we made. Is that enough to keep the lights on? No, it's not. So what are we going to do?
Now, see, that's understandable. That, you're not trying to, break the bank, so to speak.
Right.
You're just trying to pay the bills to keep the place afloat. I understand. That's understandable. And I have to commend you for that.
Thank you.
If I could get there, I would be glad to do the lockdown and pay the price. I would. Of course, me, I don't go far from home. I can't really afford it, but
I understand.
If I could, I would. To help you out, and also because I'd be interested to see what actually goes on there.
And, I have a very odd perception about this house because ultimately it's my home. That was my American dream. That was my big first home.
It's a beautiful home.
Yeah. So,
from what I saw on the outside, I haven't seen the inside, but.
You should see the inside. It's lovely. It's so lovely. Oh my God, is it lovely.
Does it have all the intricate woodwork and,
yes.
Yes. From the time.
Yes.
I love the woodwork from back then.
Yes, it's beautiful. And it's so strong.
The carved type, crown molding and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I love that.
It's beautiful. It's so lovely.
I tell most everybody that I've talked to, when I go into a place, I don't go in there only as a paranormal investigator. I go in there to see the history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love the history of these old places. And, I'm looking at that as much as I'm doing it, you know, anything paranormal in there. You know,
Yeah, that's the truth.
And when I talk about it, you know, I'll be like, well, yeah, we went in this place, you know, we investigated this place. You should see the woodwork, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And people are probably like, well, I thought
The detail.
you were a paranormal investigator.
Right.
Well, I am, but, you know, there's other things too.
You know, we don't, when teams come, this is what we do. You know, they come in at 7:00. It's $45 a person, 3 people minimum. You just got to bring 3 people minimum, 10 people max. You know, so we're not making a killing, but when they come, they got to spread. They're going to be fed. There's going to be a coffee pot. There's going to be running water. There's going to be towels if they need to take a shower. And in a couple of months, the bedrooms are going to be furnished if they want to spend the weekend, if they want to sleep. It's a home.
Now, if you, do you charge, like you said, $45 a person? What if a person wanted to, like, be there for the weekend? And when I asked this also, you said you do it as a lockdown, right? So you're saying that
Sometimes.
if, okay, if I brought my team up there and you would charge them like $45 a person, we're like a 5-member team.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to have the place to ourselves for the weekend. What would something like that cost you?
$500. What are you paying the first night? What, $250? So just double it. You know?
Right.
That's fair.
So it would be like $90 per person, basically.
Right. But you know, we've got a king size bed coming. We've got a day bed coming. We've got a twin and a queen and a living room set. You know, we've got the stove and the refrigerator in there. So it's a home. It is your home. Unfortunately, it's haunted.
Well, I mean, that's why you would go in the first place. But,
right.
But if you have all the, you know, the amenities, you have, you know, your bed, you have your place to keep your food, whatever you want, you know. And with me, you know, the coffee pot is a must. So.
Yes. Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, there you go. But that's awesome. Mars said, how about GoFundMe, see if others would donate to keep the house up and running? And that's not a bad idea.
Well, if somebody wants to start that, let me know. But I've not had people frown on that. I think, you know, people definitely frown on that, and I'm a little bit proud. You know,
well,
I don't like to ask for handouts.
I understand that, you know, but I mean, if worse come to worse, and you could, you know, you could set it as a small goal because you're not trying to empty people's pockets.
Right.
You know, you could set a small goal just to help out with, you know, upkeep and stuff like that, because I'm sure that there's repairs that's going to need to be done.
Well, I need a new roof. You know, it needs a new roof. Honest to God, Roger, I could not find a contractor that would go in that house and fix the roof because it's haunted. I finally found a younger man that's, you know, kind of hard on his luck right now. And that's what that house does. When you're hard on your luck, guess what? There's a house. And he needs work. And he contacted me and he said, look, I know your house is haunted, but my family really needs some money right now. Can you help us? And I'm like, well, we don't have any money, but we're going to start budgeting we need a roof, and we're going to start budgeting for that. He
Okay.
said,
William Wallace brought up a good idea in the chat. He said that he would recommend you create a non-for-profit, basically, or organization to assist you in the keeping the house in power and water and stuff like that. And that's not asking for help per se. That's just, you know, because it is actually a famous place, and actually, if it's not in the historical society, it should be.
It should be. I don't know exactly how to do that, but I know I have.
Yeah, you might check into that. You know,
right.
Seeing about, you know, if the historical side. But if nobody in the town wants anything to do with the house, I kind of don't see that happening.
Correct.
But it never hurts to check.
Try. Right.
Wasn't that one of like the first houses there?
Yes. Yes, it was.
So, I mean, that, in my opinion, puts it in a historical part right there. It wouldn't hurt to check into that and just see what you can do.
Hmm. That's definitely on the list.
Now, what is it? Is there supposed to be a like a regular cemetery there also?
It's on the hill. I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. I don't remember it. But, Eliza is her monument is erected up there. It's a whole huge image of her, and her
Like
back.
family plot from the people that own the house.
Correct. Yes. And her back is, Belaire is facing her back. She turned her back on Belaire.
Okay. Now I have to ask why. Why?
Well, her mother was a barmaid, and back in the days, back in the late 1800s, that wasn't proper. And here comes this coal mining tycoon out of England and sees this beautiful young woman and marries her. Well, the town people, the ritzy aristocrat, they didn't want him being with a daughter of a barmaid, and they treated her horrible. She didn't fit in.
Okay, now that has me a little bit perplexed because was she not the daughter of this person who basically founded this place?
Lied was the barmaid. That was the man. That was Eliza's mom. Does that make sense? There's Lied, there's Eliza, there's different weird names like that. I don't mean to be rude. I'm not trying to, disrespect their first names, but he married the barmaid, and they had the daughter, they had the son.
Okay, yeah. Now I'm remembering. He married a barmaid, and they kind of frowned on all that.
Well, her mother was the barmaid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He married the daughter of a barmaid. Yes, and no one liked that. That was very disrespectful. It was very improper.
Well, I don't know how to say this and sound, but in my opinion, people did what they had to do.
That's right.
And, if being a barmaid is how she survived, you really, you may not like it, but you have to respect it. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
she's doing what she has to do to survive.
That's right.
And you would have some of the uppity, snooty people probably thinking, well, maybe she should go lay down in a dark alley or a ditch or something and just go, rather than be that. But, because she's not worthy, so to speak.
Well,
But,
when a parent has a child that they have to take care of, they'll go, cook French fries at McDonald's if they have to.
exactly.
They'll do whatever they have to do in order to make sure that child is provided for.
Williams said she was considered an up-jump partican. Patican, I don't know what he's saying there, in a very inbred community.
Inbred is correct.
She would be ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
Ew, inbred community? That just registered.
Well, there is some speculation, and this is just speculation, that the brother and sister were not just brother and sister, that they actually had a relationship.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but Mars just came up with an excellent idea.
Okay.
You should run it as a haunted house for Halloween too.
No, we are.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're doing now.
That would probably help you out a lot right there.
It is. It's helping a little, not a whole lot, because we're in the Ohio Valley. A lot of people don't have a lot of money,
Well,
so.
I understand that, but I'm sure there'd be people coming from, around other places too.
Well, that's what my market is. My market isn't here, and I'm being businesslike now. My market is outside of the valley because I don't want to walk down the street. I don't want to go into the pharmacy or Kroger or, or Undo's and there's the There's the witch that has the haunted house, and she's crazy.
Another thing, CJ just brought up, you should do like a haunted bed and breakfast.
We are. That's why we're waiting for the rooms to be furnished.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. See, a lot of people bringing up good things here, and you've already obviously thought about it. So, but
and,
yeah.
And going back to flatlining it, going back to trying to remove this demonic infestation. Yes, that's definitely still something to contemplate. That is definitely something to continuously always try to do. And even let's say that we are able to successfully do that. The business isn't going to die because of the history. The history is there, and the experiences and the stories that have already occurred, not just my stories, but other stories from other people. Those are all going to be engraved. And why not open it up? 7:00. We have dinner at 8. Your rooms are upstairs. We sit around, we talk, have a cigar, have some brandy, have some wine, make it very nice, have chess games, board games, fun, where you don't have to watch the kids or clean up, just a couples thing, and,
yeah, Hobson brought up another good point too. If you won't let anyone but experienced researchers in due to the entity there, how can you open it up to the general public?
Because we're there and they're not investigating. They're not going to be, that part of it, those people will be controlled. And I hate to say it like that because I don't like to enforce control, but they'll be monitored. There'll be someone there, staff there that's serving food, refilling drinks, showing them to their rooms. Hopefully when they go to their rooms for the night, once we get to that point, they're not whipping out a Ouija board. It's not like we're going to search them when they come in. We can only hope that they're not going to do that. And we can only tell them the precautions that they need to take. It's up to them to be adults and responsible at that point.
That's true. But when you have a haunted house for Halloween, you're not just going to have adults there.
Yes. No. They have to be 18 or older. There's no children allowed in the house. Absolutely not. No. Not in this one. Sorry.
Okay. I'm just saying, a lot of adults would take their children to haunted houses and stuff on Halloween,
This isn't the house then for them. They can go to the prison down the road, the penitentiary, the West Virginia penitentiary. They can take them there. This is not that kind of a place. No. Because we don't know. It's so unpredictable. I'm not going to have a child be at risk. I would not be able to live with myself. I'm going to be honest, I would not.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I'm just, we're bringing up suggestions and trying to figure ways to help, maintain things. I don't blame you for that. I mean, if you're worried about their safety, I can't blame you for that. And with me, it wouldn't be how I would feel about it. It would be about knowing that, nobody's going to get hurt, especially children.
That's the goal. The goal is to come in, have a paranormal experience, and take, when they come in on public tours, we spend an hour going over precautions, protection, what to do, what not to do. In the event that this happens, this is what you do. We kind of like a tornado drill when you're in elementary school. This is what you do. And we practice it. And then they know. But kids, no. Sorry. And everybody signs waivers. Everybody signs the harmless clause,
Well, and that's a given. If you know the history and you know what could possibly happen, then it's a enter at your own risk type deal. Mm-hmm. And I understand, you signing a waiver for protection and all that. I'm one of these people who, how would you put it? If you remember watching the Clint Eastwood movie Dirty Harry, where he had the 44 Magnum or whatever.
Right. Yes.
And he asked the guy, did I shoot 3 times or 4? Well, I'd be the guy. I got to know. I would have to go in there. I would just have to.
Do you feel lucky?
Yeah, you feel lucky, punk? Well, do you? But I'd be like, well, I got to know. You know what? I'd sign 5 waivers just to go in there because I got to know. You
Right.
know, I'm just that way. And, like I said, I've never run into anything like that so far. I'm doing my little, quotation and cross thing here. But I mean, that's not to say that I never will. I mean, if you do this long enough, you're going to run into something bad.
Right.
So far, I haven't, and I've done this for several years. Like I said, I've never run into anything like that. If I do, logic tells me get the heck out of there and find somebody that knows how to deal with it. Whether it be the reverend, the bishop, whatever. Or the shamanic, the shaman, or whatever it takes. That's what I would do. If I'm asked to come in, I'm not going to leave you high and dry, but if I feel like there's danger, I'm going to get you out of the house and me out of the house, and we're going to get somebody that can go in there and deal with it.
That's right. And the, Tiffany is right next door. So if in any event, somebody, a team comes in and they're spending the night or they're spending the weekend or they're just coming in for a couple of hours, Tiffany can walk across the street and get them into safety. The phone numbers are there. They can walk out the door. We all point to her house. Somebody is there,
Well, I would, how do I say this? If you have what you feel like is a demonic spirit and you don't want to get rid of it, for whatever reason you may not want to get rid of it, if I was going to have people coming in there, I would have a bishop or somebody on hand when they go in there.
Mm-hmm. We have a nurse on staff. We have that too. She's also an ordained reverend. She's a minister. So it's kind of double bang for the buck,
I'm just saying I would want somebody in there in case anything went awry, so to speak.
Correct. And there is, yeah. And again, she's right there. She's absolutely right there. All they got to do is just pick up the phone. I mean, she can't go there every night and, you know what I mean? She has a day job. She just can't spend every night in there with teams night after night. That would be draining. That would just it would just debilitate her.
Let's put it this way. Somebody on call 24/7 if you're going to open it up for people to go in there.
Yeah, they're on call. Absolutely.
Where they can be there in a matter of minutes.
Yes, a minute, 1 minute. Well, maybe 2. They got to put their shoes on and walk down a few steps.
Right.
Just
say it. That makes logical sense to me.
Mm-hmm. We've already thought about that. We've thought about everything. And honestly, this just reopened the last week of September. And I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to figure out what could go wrong, who needs to be in place, what do we need to do, what if this happens, what if this happens. We have a plan. We have plans for, like safety plans of action.
Okay, I'm just going over what I would want in a situation like that.
And it's not that we don't want. It's not like we're harboring this inhuman demon spirit. We're not keeping them hostage. It would be great if they would just, pack their suitcase and leave. That would be awesome, because regardless, there's still going to be some sort of activity in there, whether it be earthbound spirit, whether it be intellectual spirit, whether it be another demonic force that comes in. It is a revolving door of spiritual activity that occurs at the Belaire House.
Okay, we need to take a short call letter break here. We're live on WCJV, digital broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my guest, Kristin Lee, and we're talking about the Belaire House. It's in, what's the name of that town?
Belaire, Ohio.
Belaire, Ohio. I knew it was Ohio. I just wasn't thinking that the house and the town was the same name. But anyway, why I didn't think of that, I don't know. Good Lord. Anyway, see what happens when you get involved in all this stuff. You start losing your mind.
Yes, I absolutely know what you mean.
But it's been really interesting, and I love it's like I said, I love those old kind of houses like that. I love the history. I love the amazing woodwork inside and outside of most of them. And of course, when you go back into history, and we haven't talked about this, the house that Jack built, when this house was built, the owner had a pet donkey, so to speak. And the donkey's name was Jack. And Jack was like a member of the family, from what I read, everything that I read.
Yes.
And when he built this house, not the house we're talking about, I think, but the one next to it or close to it or whatever.
The mansion.
The mansion was built. Jack was led into each room as it was completed for his approval. This is how much this man loved his donkey. Now, you know, you can love a dog, you can love a cat, a ferret, whatever, you know, but how many times do you hear about someone who has a pet mule or donkey that they love like a dog or a cat that, you know, I would assume Jack had a place sitting at the table. You know what I mean? From what I read. But the donkey went into each room of this mansion and okayed it, so to speak. So it was called the house that Jack built. Now, is there anything I didn't add that you want to add to that? Because
nope, that's pretty much it. And in the coal mines, Jack would actually help pull out the coal too. So he was his confidant. You know, he was his best friend. He was Jacob Hetherington's best friend.
Exactly, kind of like you would have. Let's just use William as a case. William is my best friend. We do everything together. Well, this guy and his mule or donkey did everything together.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like, you remember old Grizzly Adams, Mad Jack, and
yeah. Well, I'm going to bring this up, and this may sound a little bit off target here, a little bit. But in my mind, I'm picturing this. How many kids did this guy have?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I know of at least two.
Because
I know of at least
wondering
two.
how they got close enough with Jack in between them. I had to do that. I'm sorry. But, you know, I mean, I think that's pretty neat that he loved his donkey so much, you know. I mean, that's pretty wild. You don't hear of that. You know, it's not like a mainstream thing. I don't have now, if I had a horse and I loved my horse and I was close to my horse, that would be fine, but I wouldn't go as far as to bring my horse in my house and say, how do you like this room? You know, just saying, that's something you don't hear of every day.
Right.
So I wanted to throw that in there because I thought everybody might like that. Now, the coal mines run underneath the Belaire House, right?
Correct.
And can you tell me or the listeners of any cave-ins where people actually died and maybe under the house?
Yes. What we have learned is there was a coal mine explosion where 42 men were killed.
And that was underneath the house?
Yes. Somewhere on that land, on the land where the house that Jack built was, as well as this house, the Belaire House. So,
you know, that would be, you were saying that a lot of entities were crossed over and stuff. I can understand where a lot of them would come from.
Mm-hmm.
You have your Native American burial ground with lots of, you know, bodies probably there. You have the coal mine explosion with, you know, all those bodies there. And, it's my belief that if something horrible happens and you die of a horrible death in a certain place, whether they get your body out of there or not, your spirit's still going to be there.
Right.
So you're looking at 40-something spirits still trapped there.
Maybe.
You have the family plot up there with the original owners and family that are buried up there. All the Native American spirits that are buried up there. It's kind of like how do I say this? Like a gold mine of activity.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm probably going to be sure that even though you say there was a lot of spirits that were crossed over, you probably didn't get them all.
Correct.
So outside of this demonic or Native American evil spirit, whatever it is, there's probably still other spirits trapped there. Now,
yes.
And also,
yeah.
if you have a demonic or a Native American evil spirit, whatever it is, they like to control the other spirits.
That's right.
And keep them there, locked down, like their little minions or whatever you want to call them.
Right.
So I'm sure there's probably some of that still going on. I'd be having documentaries filmed there. Yeah. Well, did they do, there was a My Ghost Story episode.
Yes, they did the My Ghost Story episode. Yes,
they did it in the actual house.
Yes, they did. And there's things that are occurring. I'm just not able to say right now, but there's a lot more documentation that's going to be coming to the Belaire House.
Kat said we should all just come together and buy a haunted location. Yeah, that'd be cool. I would, I want to see, I really would love to see the inside of that house. I really would. I'm sure it's as awesome as the outside.
It's
probably
better.
More so, but.
It's better than the outside. The outside's run down. The outside needs some work.
It looked pretty good to me. It looked pretty cool. I love those styles of houses too, anyway.
It's beautiful. It is. It's just the roof, you can sit on the roof and watch the boats, the steamboats go down the river. Yeah.
So even if you didn't find a spirit, you could sit on the roof and watch boats go by.
That's right. Yep.
See, that's interesting. And of course, if I ever came there to investigate, I would have to go up on the roof, and look out over the river. That would be, one of the things on my to-do list.
And what's awesome too is there's the football field that's right across the street, so you can sit on the roof and watch the game. It's really cool. I love the house. I just do not love what's in it. I don't, and I miss my home. I do. I really miss it.
I would, like I said, I would love, and if well, geez, I don't know exactly what I would do if I owned a house like that. Because I would want to make sure that everything I did was protected. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody involved. Right. Would be as protected as humanly possible.
Correct. And we do that. I mean, in Stregoria, my practice is kosher salt is a must. When you leave that home, you get a bottle of water, put the kosher salt in it, dump it on the bottoms of your shoes. You get home and you get your butt in the shower or the bathtub and you take a kosher salt bath. I tell you what, my skin is so dried out over the past couple of weeks from in and out of that house. Even if you just step on the ground, we have to kosher salt. We always wear our St. Michael. We always have our protection packs, which consist of iron, nails, wolf's hair, mandrake, rue, vervain. The women carry them in their right bra. The men carry them in their left pocket of their pants. The iron actually repels negative forces. We've had to do a lot of research on that, and cleanse. No meat. absolutely no meat, no drinking, no smoking, no drugs, no, nothing like that. Because that you have to be clean. You have to do
See,
that
that's the
detox.
thing. How are you going to know that these people going in there do not have drugs in their system?
Well, we can tell them. We can tell them what they can do in order to protect themselves. And ultimately, it's their responsibility to be adults and heed the warning. You know, we can tell them, but what they choose to do is a different story. But they still sign the waiver. And it's on the website. You know, if you are in there and you're bringing alcohol, if you're doing drugs, you will be asked to leave, and you will not get a refund because it's right there. It's in red. Do not do that.
Would they come out of that house the next day singing that song like from the Wizard of Oz, like Mars said? I do believe in spooks. I do believe in spooks. I do believe in spooks.
That's funny because I put that on the Belaire page about a week ago. The Facebook, like, you know how you have those like pages on Facebook? It's called the Belaire House. I put the Cowardly Lion. I do believe in spooks. I do.
I'd have to draw the line at somebody pull my tail.
That's funny.
You believe it more than that before I'm finished. You gotta love Mars. Mars is the co-owner of CJ Mars Radio Network.
Okay.
Kristin Mars. He's a riot, but we love him.
We had a radio show that we just ended last Tuesday because of the house. So, I mean, it has been a major transition and change for us. Our radio show was titled Witch Talk Radio, Ohio Valley, and we did education pieces on, you know, on the craft and how to take precautionary measures and what you should do, what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, and, you know, just projecting positive reinforcement, love and light. And we had to end the season. It's just too much, you know. It was too much to do that. And that was our baby. We had that for 3 years. Now we're just kind of thrown into this. So we have had a lot of changes in a month. In 1 month, everything has just changed.
It's amazing how quick things can, you know, turn around, and not in a good way. Right.
But I tell you what, you know, with Bishop Long and Kat, they're very, very supportive. They're, you know, I talk to Kat every day, and it isn't, you know, sometimes there is some things that bother me about that house, and, you know, I worry. Honest to God, I worry about things that could happen, and, you know, she's there. She's become a very, very supportive friend to me. So
that's good, though.
Mm-hmm. So that is a positive. You know, bad things happen, but there's always the positive, and I choose the positive over the negative and try to just make the best out of the worst.
You also might think, and this is just something I'm going to throw out there, but if you have somebody like her that is local, that could like be there, you know, when you do lockdowns and stuff like that, that is, you know, very familiar with everything and mm-hmm. knows what to expect and how to deal with something if it come up. Because you may have, you can ask anybody that comes there, you know, well, how much experience do you have? And they might tell you, well, I've got 20 years experience, and they ain't never done one in their life.
Right.
You know, and you have no way really to prove that.
Correct.
You know, unless you look them up and say, you know, well, I know they've at least been, you know, posting evidence, you know, on Facebook or something for over a year or two or whatever, you know. How, you know, you find out where they're from, look into the, you know, what they've done in their hometown, et cetera, which is a lot of stuff to do in order to clear somebody. So basically you have to take them at their word.
Right.
You know, and you really don't know for sure.
Oh, it's honorability. It's integrity and honorability. That's.
Yeah. And as I hate to say this, but there are people in the field who are not honest and have a lot of integrity, but you know, you ain't going to know that until you deal with them.
Correct. And I know that's coming. I know that's coming. We don't know how we're going to handle that because how do you handle that? You just hope for the best. That's all you can do. You can
Well,
give them the
that's why I'm
tools.
saying if you had somebody local enough that could be there just in case, you know, so that hopefully they would get the idiots out of there, so to speak.
Correct. Well, Tiffany is there, and Tiffany was trained. Tiffany was trained by Kat. Kat is very, very knowledgeable, and Tiffany's a sponge. She just picks up on all of it, and plus, she's been with me throughout this journey since I moved into that neighborhood. She's been right beside me. She's like my sister. She's not my
Right.
biological sister, but she's
Well,
hardcore.
it's sad to say that there's a lot of people that come into this field just to make a name for themselves,
That's true.
and they may not know what the heck they're doing, but they want to go into an active location of a famous place, and get known.
Correct. We experienced that last two or 3 weeks ago, and we nipped that right in the butt. We just took care of that real quick.
I hate to even say that because, to me, the paranormal field is a,
It's a risk.
it's that, but it's also, we're never going to be accepted as long as there's people out there that do that stuff. If you don't have honesty and integrity and you don't care about what you're doing, if you're just looking for fame and fortune, you're in the wrong field. Go somewhere else. But there's unfortunately a lot of people out there that's all they're interested in. They couldn't make it as an actor. They couldn't make it as a rock singer. So I'll be a paranormal investigator and I'll be on My Ghost Story and Ghost Hunters and whatever else, And that's not what it's about. Geez, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, like I tell everybody else, all those shows are about is ratings and money. I just can't wrap myself around all that. But that's what I'm saying. You ain't going to know until they get in there, whether they're rookies or coming in there looking for fame and fortune, whatever they're doing. You're not going to know that because they're not going to tell you that.
Right.
And once they're in there and everything, you got to get them out quick as you can.
That's right.
I mean.
The positive part of all of this, the honest to God positive part is there's a family that reached out to me that is going through what I went through at the beginning of this. And I have the resources to help them now. 10 years ago, I would not have had those resources to help them. So there are families out there that are going through not exactly what my family and I went through, but pretty darn close. And they're not going to have to be tortured. They're not going to have to vacate their home and go into debt and file bankruptcy. And they're not going to have to do any of that. I have resources now. I have them. And all they have to do is message me and ask me for them, and I will gladly help them. But I'm not going to their house. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I don't do that. But I will definitely be like that paranormal social worker and link you to the people that you need. That's my purpose.
Social worker. I like that. That's I've never heard that before. Now, I've heard of people that work in social work that also investigate the paranormal, but I've never heard them put together like that.
There's no degree for that. There's no licensure for that either.
Hey, maybe they should have one. They should be a college curriculum. Yeah.
Paranormal social worker.
I take class. Yeah, and that's kind of what a lot of us do. We go in to help these people so they don't have to be afraid.
That's right.
So they can sleep peaceful at night. So I guess in a way we are kind of like paranormal social workers.
That's right.
And we also, we contact them afterwards. We make sure everything's still okay. Is everything good? If you need us to come back, just give us the word. We'll come back, um, that sort of does fall under that.
For the longest time, I was just so mad at the paranormal community. Roger, I was so disgusted because, all of these people would come in, they would identify what was going on. There was all this collection of data, but no one got rid of it, and I couldn't understand. I was like, well, you've got all of this data, you've got all of this research, you've identified what this is. Can't you just make it leave now?
Because
please?
That's what a lot of them go in there for, is just, to have evidence.
Yeah.
They're not interested in, now I can't say that about everybody. There's a lot of good teams out there that will do everything in their power. And like I said, if it's something I don't know how to deal with, I will find you somebody that knows how to deal with it.
That's right.
Because that's what you do. If you can prove that there's something there and you don't know how to get rid of it or deal with it, you find somebody that can.
That's right.
Because the object is to help that person. It doesn't matter if you're the actual one that rids them of the problem, as long as you find somebody that can rid them of the problem.
Yeah, that's the truth. And there's a little girl that contacted me last Tuesday telling me about some of the things that are going on in her home. And she has a family. She has 2 children. She's married. I finally got back with her. I responded to her immediately and said, let me think about this. And I finally got back to her today. And I asked her questions. I asked her hard questions, like, are you on medication? Have you had psychiatric help? Like the evaluations that you have to do.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand why. And I'm like, honey, these are just standard questions. These are things that you have to go through first if you want to build a case. And let me gather this information so I can figure out who to send this to. So I'll even gather the information and then just have their permission to, hey, my buddy Steve Hummel, I'm going to put his name out there. He has a great team in West Virginia, Moundsville, West Virginia. I'm going to be calling on him a lot because he's the only person that I know right now that's close to my area. There's a couple other teams around here too, but they sell Ouija boards online, and I don't like that.
No.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's not my cup of tea. We're trying to be safe here. We're trying to help people. Yeah, there's a demonic infestation at the Belaire House, but I can't do anything about that right now. My hands are tied with that point. I can only do so much. But the people that actually need the help, just call. Don't call me at 2:00 in the morning. Don't do that because that will piss me off. But appropriate hours of the day, call. I will help. But
well, now, if you, and just saying here, if you wanted to get rid of the house, could you not, as you said, have it flatlined?
It can be flatlined. Yes.
And then you put it up on the market. If somebody buys it and they do something to open that back up, that's their baby.
That's true. That is true. That is very true. I'm scared. I'm scared that, okay, I thought about this. I've thought about this for about 3 weeks now. Let's say I sell the house, okay, and somebody walks in and they buy it and they have this happy family and then they open it up. Who's the first person they're going to call, Roger?
But see, that's not your problem anymore.
Yeah, but it's that conscience. It's my conscience. It's, at that point, I know families
then it really leaves no other objective than to burn the place down,
That's what I told Kat yesterday.
Just saying,
I told her, I was like, if there's any kind of craziness, we'll just torch it. We'll just have the volunteer fire teams come and they can do some sort of whatever that they need to do.
Right. Say, look, this is mine. I'm going to burn it down. Have the fire department standing by because, I told you guys I didn't want this place. I'm going to burn it.
Then we can have a GoFundMe account because Kristin will be really, really poor. I'll be in the soup kitchen. with my kids. Oh, it's a mess, Roger. It
Well, I
really
mean,
is.
and you have to look at it like, from two angles. If you don't make enough to survive without it, which is your how do I word this? Which is your best option here? Do you keep it going like that, in order to raise money, or do you do what you feel like needs to be done to keep people from ever getting hurt in that place again, and survive the best way you can?
Yeah, it's a catch-22. It really is. And and another thing too to think about too, I've thought about this as well. Let's say the house is no longer available. Let's just say it, for some reason, it's gone. It just miraculously disappears. Let's say that, which I don't think that'll ever happen, but let's just say it does. There's still the story, there's still the book, there's still.
Exactly. And, so there's other means
Mm-hmm.
of, survival.
Right.
And burning down the house would not get rid of
No.
whatever's going on, because it's probably
The land.
based more than it is
The house.
the house.
Right.
And that wouldn't stop people from going there on the land and, doing whatever. So you burn down the house, you clean off the lot, you sell the lot to whoever,
Yep. They build something, and guess what? There you go. It starts all over again. Who are they going to call?
They might not even want to build something. They just may want to keep the land and say, hey, look, we have this haunted land here. It's got an Indian burial ground, exploded mine shafts that killed all these people, you guys can come check it out, Anyway, we got about 2 minutes left. It's been an awesome show. I appreciate you being on so much, everybody. Kristin Lee.
Thank you for having me.
Belaire House in Ohio, Belaire, Ohio. If you have any links that you want to give out, now would be a good time to do that.
The best link is the Facebook page. It's Belaire House. There's a website. It's on the Facebook page. It's Belaire House. All the links are on there. All the information's on that page. If anybody needs anything, my phone number is 740-579-1841. That's the best way. Just be respectful and call me during business hours, not at, early morning hours when I got to get the kids up to go to school.
Well, it's been awesome. And if anybody wants to go that's in that area, whatever, I'm sure Kristin will hook you up, let you go have some fun.
Thank you.
At least I would hope it would be fun, but it may not be. But anyways, that would help her out. It would give you an experience, for the rest of your life. Whether it is or it ain't, it'd be an awesome place to see inside of. I'd love to do that. All the people in the chat room, thanks so much for coming in. We appreciate you. Everybody listening in, couldn't do a show without you. Thanks for coming. And next week, everybody, we're going to be shut down for network repair, or not repairs, but upgrades, etc. Stuff going on. So we will not be on next Monday, the 26th. We'll be shut down from the 24th through the 30th that I know of. So 2 weeks from today, we'll start this rigmarole all over again. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks, Kristin Lee.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, CJ Mars. Couldn't do a show without you guys either. So we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. Have a good little vacation. And good night, all.